You know, in cricket, you know, the class of a batsman is how much time he has to play a shot. You know, so when you look at the greatest batsman in the world, you should say, about time, he has a lot of time to play the shots. Never looks hurried. Well, in the world of cinema, this gentleman, he's sitting right next to me, never looks hurried. You know, when he's acting, when he's performing, he takes his time in the scenes, even when he's around him. That's, I think, the class that he has. Abhishek, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, sir. That's very sweet of you. Thank you.
But it is true, you know, and I've savored your show. You know, when I sit in, of course, I've savored all your performances, but this time I took my time watching this. I didn't binge watch it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And every little bit...
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm really detesting this word called binging.
No, I can't even... I don't understand. You know, and it happens in a theatre as well. If you've gone to watch a film at 7 o'clock in the evening after a long day of work, unfortunately, and this is a true and fact I will tell you, a lot of critics also, they feel hungry. So if the first half is a little longer than they've imagined, they suddenly get very irritable during that break.
Okay.
And I've realized that hunger pangs make you a little...
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that happens in films as well when they're watching it.
No, absolutely. But see, I understand the medium.
Yeah.
And the part of the quest also for the writers and the directors to keep you hooked.
Yeah.
That's why the end of an episode is called the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going to happen next? You want to go. And I enjoy that. But after about 2 or 3, I purposely take a break.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, it's nice to just sit there and savor what you've just seen.
Yep.
Absorb it, understand it. I don't know, maybe because we're all working in front of the camera, so maybe that's our approach.
No, I think now also, this was also a couple of things with this show. It's not a short show.
Yeah.
It was longer.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a lot to take in to understand you, the establishment, the other characters. I also, you know, where now those that have obviously seen that part will understand that you all didn't rush into revealing too much.
Yes.
Which I think was brilliantly done writing-wise. So for me, this was a very nice, savory experience. Some might have felt it longer.
I'm that because Mayank and I used to have big fights and disagreements because when he first pitched the show to me, start of 2018, and the reveal that Jay is Avinash and Avinash is Jay was actually the end of the show.
Really?
Yeah, it was meant to be the end of the 12th episode, where finally you see, hey, oh my God, it's actually him. And that was your cliffhanger for the next season. And I remember about halfway through the year, because after they pitched the basic idea and everything was, you know, all guns blazing and we were writing in detail and everything, that's when Vikram, our producer and co-creator, came up and said, hey, listen, guys, 12 episodes might be too long to stretch it. And in this genre, on this medium, people get obsessive about the show and they really research. So I think they might pick up on it. It'll be too long for us to hide that Avinash and Jay are the same person. And that it was his idea to then bring it forward to the 4th episode, which is when you get to know.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, you know, the fun of it. But actually it worked out for the better. So weirdly, what I really think is wonderful what you're saying, and it's a testimony to the writers and Mayank, is actually everything about the last season was to make it concise, make it tighter. And you still felt that, okay, you know, it was... So I think they did a great job. This season is shorter. This season is only 8 episodes. And because the challenge was, how do you make it bigger and better?
Correct.
I think every time you do a follow-up season, you have to better the previous season. Or maybe that's the case in every sequel.
Or provide something really different.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in the quest to make it bigger and better, you know, Mayank's approach was more cinematic. He said, let me try and make it more cinematic. So every episode was almost like a mini film.
Wow.
But keeping that style in mind, he said, you know what? I think we should have fewer episodes. Because we're going to have this approach, keep it tighter. So what that meant in the writing is he had to cram in a lot more. So actually, although the first season was very claustrophobic, you know, the whole shooting style, there are very few wides, more close-ups.
A lot of your face in there.
Yes. In this, Mayank style was totally different. He tried to make it bigger. But because he was filling in a lot more stuff, there's a lot more activity. It's a lot more intense in that sense. So
whatever it is, it's working.
It's. I think Mayank took his title a bit too seriously. Breathe. We were like, Mayank, breathe, calm down, you know. So yeah, fingers crossed, man. I mean, we've got 2 days left, and it's been 2 very long years of hard work. Obviously, the first season dropped in the middle of the first lockdown.
Yeah.
And
people had more time to watch it there. So
I got damn lucky, Salil. Yeah. I actually, the day it dropped, the next day, I went to hospital with COVID. Literally. So,
wow.
So Amazon's like, hey, let's do that photograph of you watching the show as soon as it drops at midnight. I'm like, cool. I took that photograph the next morning. I'm like, you've got COVID. I'm like, okay, I only have time now to watch the show. So I actually watched it almost like within the first 2 days.
Wow.
And then, you know, Mayank had already started working on the next season because of the format of the show and the story.
Yeah.
You know, Jay's mission is to get rid of Ravan's 10 heads.
Yeah.
So 4 were down. There were 6 more to go.
6 more to go.
So the format was always that it's going to be a multi-season show. And he started writing. He actually went into the mountains in Himachal. He was there for almost a year, I think.
Wow.
Just writing, and then we got back and we started...
Were you like regularly listening to find out what's up, man?
No, absolutely. It was more him because, you know, Mayank, although is like a renaissance man. He does everything.
Yeah.
And, but he's unbelievably giving and sharing as a director. You know, I feel sometimes directors like to play their cards very close to their chest because part of also what they have to do is they have to be master manipulators. You know, so they don't like to show all their cards. Mayank is somebody who doesn't tell you what the story is. Like, I mean, I'll let you into a secret. I still don't know what C16 is.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't think any cast member knows what C16 is. So we were literally, there'd be...
What is that a tactic of his that not to be able to let everybody know?
He doesn't, and then what he does very naughtily is he'll tell Amit something, he'll tell me the complete opposite. So when we meet and we start discussing, because we're, you know, I mean, actors are actors. We're all flocked together. So we used to have lunch and say, hey, you know, do you know anything? So there's an air of secrecy that he keeps as an approach for his work because he wants his actors to be more instinctive, but he shares a lot as well. So it was, I mean, Mayank and I used to speak once or twice a week during the lockdown saying, I'm thinking of this, what do you think of this? Sir, how do you think you'd play this? I said, sir, I think I'll play it like this. So, you know, he does that. And then he also likes to keep a few things away from you.
Which is kind of good, actually. You got to leave a little bit of surprise also for the actor to be able to see. But, you know, I want to roll back a little bit of the conversation that we had. You know, you said that it was crammed shooting style. There's a lot of you in there with your face.
In the last season,
yes. You've done it before as well. You know, when I used to see a Sarkar, a lot of it was like that.
I'm so glad you said
actors get very insecure if there's not that much to play with.
Yeah.
You've actually done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Your father's done a lot of that as well. Is it very difficult when you know that there's just that much and you don't want to keep putting eyebrows up and down?
And thank you so much for recognizing that. That was Ramu's style. He said, I wanted to be... So most of it was shot on a zoom lens, Sarkar. You know, I've heard this a lot, but I'm weirdly the opposite. I'm most comfortable if you give me a close-up and just leave it. I'm most comfortable. I get very nervy when I've got a lot of business to do and I have to make it very... I just feel maybe at the back of my head that for me, the biggest difference between cinema and stage is cinema's far more intimate medium. And when I say intimate, is I don't need to do much to reveal what I'm thinking or feeling or saying because I can, or the director can, and the DOP dictate where the audience is going to be. In the theater, the audience is where it is.
Yeah.
You have to perform for them.
Yeah.
Cinema, you can perform for yourself because the camera will augment the rest of it. So,
but you have to be really assured that you can pull it off.
Of course.
That is there, of course.
But, you know, with due respect to my fraternity, I mean, you got to know your basics, right? I mean, otherwise, why are we here?
And there's a scene actually in this, you know, when you go to see a body in the part 1, and you know, it's not your daughter in that scene. And you go back into the car. So there were 2 ways that could have happened. You could have had a big outburst. But I loved the time that was taken. There was this bit of a silent shot.
Yeah.
And therein I realized there's a lot of internalization that happens.
Yes, but that's Mayank, man. That's, you know, he tweaks you in the trailer before when you're doing your reading, and then when you're on set, he says, okay, now just do what you have to do. He doesn't over-direct you in that sense, which is wonderful. Once the shot is done, then he reacts and says, okay, am I convinced, am I not? But what's wonderful about him is his confidence in his writing, I guess, and he just leaves you. So I mean, it kind of expands what you were saying about, you know, Sarkar. So in theatre, I have to act for the front row and the back row.
Correct.
I have to be audible to both.
Yeah.
So the front row can't think I'm shouting, and the back row can't be like, hey, I can't hear you.
Wow.
So there's that dynamic in play. If in cinema, I can
Literally whisper, yeah.
I can just look at you like that, just with the shift. I don't need to move my, and the audience will know that, okay, there's somebody there and I need to pay attention over there.
Yeah.
In theatre, if I do that, possibly just the front 2 rows will see me, and the back 2 rows might not. So it has to be a bit more of a, you know, so I think you should use that, and I enjoy that, because that means I don't need to do too much physical and external acting. The camera doesn't lie, and if you're genuinely feeling the dialogue and the scene, it's going to show on your face. And thankfully, with directors who have that faith in their actors to be able to pull it off, they can capture it. It's actually very liberating for me.
And you pull it off. I think that,
Oh, thank you.
like I said, a lot of the times, you can sort of push yourself a little bit more, which is how I think in a show like this, where you spend, say, the better part of 2-3 years thinking about it, even if you're not performing it. Did it sometimes get a little overwhelming also, that am I only putting in too much into one basket?
No. Because, I mean, there was a fair amount of other work. You know, when the first lockdown started opening up, I was in the middle of films.
Yeah.
I was actually stuck in the middle of Bob Biswas.
Yeah.
Because we had to leave that and come back home. But what happened in the interim period is about a week, 10 days after I came out of hospital, I was in hospital for almost a month, in July and August of 2020. And by the end of August, I had to get back on set because I had made a movie called The Big Bull.
Yeah.
And that was meant to be a theatrical release.
Yeah.
And because of the lockdown, nobody knew what was going on. It was one of the first films that went straight to OTT. So at that point, Cookie, my director, and Ajay had decided that we need to tweak a certain few things, because it was designed as a
large-scale experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we had to do about 10 days of reshoot. So I did that. And as soon as that got over, I had to go and complete Bob Biswas. So I finished that. I finished Bob Biswas, and then I started shooting Dasvi. And I finished Dasvi, and that's when I came on to the next season of Breathe. So Mayank was technically prepping, after, you know, with his writing and pre-production and all that, for almost a good, I would say, 18 months.
Wow.
So we actually just, this has been a faster process, because we actually started shooting just under a year ago in Delhi. Wow. So it was actually this time last year that we were in Delhi shooting.
So it's been a very long process for him.
Yes.
You know why? When you meet Abhishek, he's also thought about so many things in his own career. And in a large way, I do believe that's like a sportsman. You have to know how to figure out your careers as you go in. You break into the scene, you're making your runs, you're getting known into the circuit, and then you have to also start doing what you're really comfortable with, what you like doing. Breathe is something that I feel like you really enjoyed doing. Do you now, and all the names that you took, you know, like 5 minutes ago, you seem like you're now enjoying everything that you're picking up, and those that you don't want to do, that's it. I don't even want to touch them for no reasons, whatever.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, how lucky am I, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think any actor is immensely blessed and lucky, and should be eternally grateful if they get to do the work that really makes them happy, and not just do stuff. And we've all done it.
Yeah.
And it's part of the process. Do stuff that runs the kitchen.
Yeah.
Or do stuff because there's nothing else. Yeah. We've all been there.
What about friends and favors?
Yes. Yeah, I'm big on that. Yeah. And I'd probably still do that. Yeah. But I'm really, really enjoying this phase of my career. I'm enjoying the work that people are bestowing on me. And I say bestowing because I think it's a wonderful feeling to know that directors also think of you. I mean, I think it'd be very brash and arrogant of me to think that they're only thinking of me. There are hundreds of much better actors. But it's nice that you're also thought of when a director thinks up a very complicated character.
Yeah.
So like with Breathe, when they first pitched it to me in 2018, I was like, okay, I don't even need to hear the script. The idea is just brilliant. The character is great. And I mean, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for any actor. And I'm really enjoying it, man. My only panic is, oh gosh, I hope they'll continue to think of me like that.
But you've done very varied work with it in the last 2 years.
Well, I've tried.
That's the great thing.
I've tried. And like I said, I don't want to elaborate too much on it. I just want to be thankful and say, okay. But I'm still hungry. I still want to do a lot more. I think every day as an actor, you discover a new facet to yourself that you want to explore. And I'm really enjoying, getting to know these new characters. I'm enjoying creating these new characters. And in this case, I'm enjoying expanding the character. Yeah.
Which is a tougher thing to actually sometimes do. How do you gauge the success now in this? Like earlier it was simple, right? You walk on a Monday morning and you're saying good.
Yeah.
But you probably got as many messages then on various social media platforms also.
It's a lot more. With OTT, it's a lot more. But I think because they don't tell you their numbers.
Yeah.
Which I think is really nice. It kind of relieves the pressure of that opening weekend, opening week. But more importantly, I think it's put the focus back on the content.
Yeah.
I think somewhere and I've noticed this is a very Indian phenomenon. I don't see it very much in the West, where the Aam Janta is, acha kitne crore ki hai? Iska aaj ka collection opening kya laga? I don't see people discussing that overseas. Anywhere.
Here is just a thing.
Yeah, and it's become that. And the concentration is more on the box office collection as opposed to discussing the film.
Yeah.
Which is how I grew up. I grew up discussing the film. Yeah. Be it in school where we were learning about, how to write film criticism or a critique of anything, to the discussions at home after seeing a film, because that was something that was encouraged at home. When you saw
Were you able to critique at home?
It wasn't about critiquing, but when we were much younger, I mean, at that point it was just like a normal conversation, but you realize that later on, it's the greatest learning about any film is to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And whatever, if you watched it on a VHS or you watched it on Doordarshan or you watched it in a theater, it was nice to sit and, as a family, we just sit, oh, what did you think and how did you feel? And, and that still happens. It still continues. I mean, as recently as last night.
Recently also, your family is in overdrive. Aishwarya has come out of the film. Bachchan sir is out of the film. This is actually like the busiest phase, I would say, in a few years.
Well, yeah, knock on wood, right? So it's good.
And all doing very well, breaking numbers everywhere. That also.
Well, we hope so. We hope so. Yeah. So, like, to answer the question, I think the greatest way to gauge on OTT platforms is that the fact that you're back for your next season, right? I mean, if Amazon, I mean, this is not a small show. This is not a cheap show.
Yeah.
It's one of their bigger shows, and the kind of enthusiasm Amazon Prime Video has put and the kind of muscle power they've put behind this, I think is very commendable. I thank them for it. But that also goes to show that somewhere they have the faith and it's done the numbers.
And you delivered. That's very important. Abhishek, 70% of this was on you. A lot of the times a show or a film can go wrong because it's centered around one character and the character messes up. Here, yes, you may have an alter ego, but a lot of it was on you. And I cannot not believe that there must have been a lot of pressure because you've got to deliver this.
I like the pressure.
Yeah.
That's another change, I think, with time. Early in my career, I didn't like the pressure. I didn't want the pressure. I'd love to deflect it. I wouldn't mind giving it to somebody else, saying, okay, you shoulder the responsibility, but in this current phase, I'm enjoying that. I think, I mean, diamonds are made under pressure, right? So, and you got to go through that. I think it's about shifting your perspective.
Yeah.
My father, and I say this publicly several times, my father always told me that his father had told him, ki, Beta yaad rakhna, jab tak jeevan hai, sangharsh hai. You got to wake up every morning and fight for it.
Yeah.
you know, and the minute you accept that, you say, okay, bring it on. I don't want to feel comfortable. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to be pushed. I want to be challenged. I want to be, yeah, like you said, I want that pressure. Because that means you're doing something special.
And I think it's out there for everyone to see. Before I sign off, the last 2 years have been so busy. I've always wondered, when you have like a very successful run, do your negotiating skills get better?
No. No, you know, wow, what a great question. No, thankfully, you know, my management handles that.
But do you ever question them, by the way?
No.
Never?
No, I mean, they're very, I mean, obviously all these business aspects are talked, and I'm a keen businessman, so I mean, I get into it, but I'm a historically renowned bad negotiator.
Really?
I'm one of those old school guys where, you know, you're like, okay, the amount is 100 rupees.
Yeah.
And they're like, nee, yaar, 50. And you're like, dude, this is the kind of time. And I have a logic for everything. I don't do things on a whim and a fancy.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, look, I'm really going through a tough time. I've known you for so long. Chalo, no problem. You know, that's
You're
me.
a sucker for that.
So yeah, I'm very emotional that way. And I think my first job being in production as a production boy for my dad's company, I think from a producer straight away.
Yeah.
So if it's like, I mean, it can be something very superficial. Yeah. You're going for promotions, you're there for a night, and they open up the presidential suite for you, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. But dude, I just have to sleep, just give me a bed. I don't need the president. You know, So it's, but that's great. I become worse. Because I think after you're done with something, you're like, oh God, I need my next job, you know, so don't do anything to mess it up. Yeah. So I keep telling them. I tell my managers, just make sure it happens.
I think you should keep them because I think they do a very good job because you're flush with work, touch wood.
Yes, thank God.
And it's working.
Thank God.
So they're working.
Yes, absolutely. I love
they
them. They
deserve their salaries, whatever they're getting.
Yeah, they're absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much for joining me.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
But it really is. You know, I think if you spend enough time, you'll be able to see all the gems. A lot of the people keep asking me, there's so much content, so much content. You don't have to jump into the jungle. Just choose what you want to see, spend enough time watching it. You'll actually start to appreciate a lot more content. Thank you so much for joining me on Star Stop. This is Salil signing out.